I'm getting so sweaty. I'm so hot right now. I'm like, my nipple pasty, I don't even know why am I wearing these nipple pasties? It's so hot. There's no AC in this room, as you guys know. Okay, anyways, let's continue. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am reshooting this Q&A. For those of you who have submitted your questions about a month ago, you're probably wondering, girl, where's the video? So I filmed this video about a month ago and I was just feeling off that day. Overall, I just was not happy with the video and I thought, maybe I just need to reshoot it. So today I am in a very positive mood. I'm feeling good. So let's tackle this Q&A. I wrote down all the questions in my journal. What is the greatest growth you've experienced in the past year? There are so many layers to this question because I feel like as human beings, we all grow and evolve so much every year. I've grown as a person, as an individual. I've grown a lot as a partner to Wa. I've grown a lot as like a dog mom and a daughter. I've just grown in a lot of areas. I guess I'm just finding more of my own voice and my own confidence. In the last year, I feel like I've learned to be more just like forward about how I feel. And if I didn't agree to something or I felt differently about something, I would just voice it and not worry about how the other person may perceive it, because that's just kind of who I was all the time. I've always been worried about coming off the wrong way to people, but in the last year, I've realized that if I'm just being myself and I'm being the best version of myself and the most honest version of myself, however I come off to another person, that's just the way that they're going to perceive me, but that's not the truth of who I am, you know? I feel more confident in expressing how I feel, and I don't feel like I need to be apologetic for who I want to be, and I don't feel as much of a pressure of living up to other people's expectations. Another example that I can share is I grew up on YouTube pretty much. I was 15 when I made my first video. I was very, very young. And even though I was very young at the time, a lot of people who watched me were even younger than me. And at the time, I remember a lot of people would say things like, I really look up to you. You're like the big sister I never had. And I always go to you for advice and everything. And I think with that, I took a lot of kind of responsibility about the way that I would appear on YouTube. And I was still being myself, but there was that sense of where I always had to do right by other people and that I can't let people down and I can't make mistakes. That's like one example. I think in the last year, I've learned that there are a lot of people who will try to tell me like, hey, Weylie, like, I don't like the way you're thinking, or I feel like you shouldn't have said that. And immediately I'll be like, oh my God, I shouldn't have said that. Like, I really made a mistake. But sometimes those truly are my opinions. And I think I've really learned that I don't need to share all of my opinions, even if I feel strongly about something. There's just a time and a place for it. Not that I'm saying I'm silencing myself, but I've realized that there are a lot of opinions out there. And if I feel strongly about mine and I don't want someone to tell me otherwise, I think the best thing to do is just keep those opinions to myself and like just let myself process it and grow from it instead of having it being like a public thing. Does that make sense? I've grown a lot as far as just really letting myself be human and like letting myself have an opinion and not feel like I am responsible for everyone else or how other people perceive me, because I just need to do right by myself. So yeah, that's like the biggest growth I think for myself. And I'll talk a little bit more about like my growth in my relationship with Wa too, because that's actually one of the other questions. But yeah, hope that answers the first question. How have you been supporting local the past few weeks? I've been trying to support local mom and pop restaurants as much as I can, or actually that's actually all I've been doing. Like there was a day where I was really craving Shake Shack, but I'm like, let me just spend my money on like a local burger joint instead of Shake Shack, because Shake Shack will survive, but maybe not the mom and pop shop, you know? But, you know, I thought the Soup Plantation would survive through it all, but I just heard that Soup Plantation is not gonna make it, which is just really, really devastating because it's like one of my favorite salad bars. They have like such good prices, such good quality. R.I.P. Soup Plantation. We did launch our Shop Small campaign, which I'm so proud of, on Women. If you guys missed it, just to give you like a little idea of what it was. When the whole pandemic first started, we were like, okay, this is crazy, but we also were aware that a lot of other small businesses like us are taking a huge hit. So we thought like, okay, what are some small businesses that we love, that are local, that we can collaborate with and support each other during this time? So we launched our Shop Small campaign. And I feel like that's what Woman has always been about for me, where, I mean, obviously we have our own brand, but how do we expand ourselves beyond that? You know, how do we connect with our community and other women? And I think the Shop Small campaign really just like hit like the jackpot, or like it really is exactly what I would envision Women to be. So I was really proud that we did that. So that's another way we've been supporting small businesses. And I think that's about it. I think like, you know, the best ways that you can, if you're wondering like how you can help support your local community, is just whenever you're about to make a purchase, think about, do I really need to buy this item at Target, or can I find it at like a smaller mom and pop local market or a restaurant? Do you let your dogs on your bed? I think if I didn't live with Wa, I probably would let the dogs on the bed. I used to always, actually. Like growing up, our dogs were allowed on the bed here and there as long as they were clean. Obviously, if they're muddy, they're not going to be allowed on the bed. You would think after so many years he'd build immunity to it, but no, he's still really allergic to them. So anytime they lay on the bed, and if the dog's laid on his pillow or on the sheets, like he would get really, really severe allergies from it. So because of that, we don't usually let the dogs on the bed, but we also learned from our trainer that you have to set these boundaries with your pets. Once in a while, we'll, like if they're clean and they have just been bathed, we'll let them on the bed for like a little bit, but they sleep on their own beds. We have like so many dog beds, so they're comfortable, and I think it's kind of nice having that balance. Our bedroom's really small, so we have a queen size mattress, which is a decent size, but if you put 2 full-size humans on a queen size mattress and you put 3 more dogs on top of that, that's just like too much. So yeah, to answer your question, they don't sleep on the bed, and we let them sometimes. How is Woman doing during this difficult time? If I'm being completely honest, we, like most small businesses, are not doing so well. I am hopeful that things will get better, and yeah, I don't know. I don't really know how to answer that, because I feel so fortunate and lucky that we're in a position where we're still able to stay afloat for now. And I know there are so many businesses who are closing down, and I don't even know what to say. Like, I feel like, you know, we're doing okay. I don't want to sit here and say like, oh, we're doing great, when we're not. But yeah, we're doing okay, and I'm just grateful for what it is right now. I am just hopeful that things will get better. I am very excited for our summer collection, and we just have new ideas for the company that hopefully will be more exciting for you guys. But for now, I'm very grateful and glad that we're not closing down. It is a very scary thing to think about, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the future holds, and if the pandemic continues to go on for who knows how long, I think us, along with a lot of small businesses, we would really be struggling. But as of now, we're trying our best, and I'm just hopeful. I think I'm just being optimistic about the future, and I want to say thank you to all of you who supported our Shop Small campaign or are continuing to support us. It really, really means a lot, and yeah, thank you. How do you cope with the lockdown? How do you stay positive? I've been reading a lot more self-help books during this time, and I think that's been very helpful. In the beginning, when all of this kind of first went down, I was watching the news a lot, and I think that kind of drove me into like a state of panic and just worry and anxiety. And now I've just lessened the amount of the news I'm watching, because I realized like that was kind of the source of me feeling so stressed. So I think if you're feeling very stressed out and worried, and you happen to be watching the news a lot, I would say like first start by just cutting that down a little bit. I know it's important to stay informed, but you can't just like overwhelm yourself with information, you know, because a lot of the information right now is very scary and very negative. So the best advice that I can give is that you just have to keep trying and keep believing and being optimistic about life. Like whenever anything bad happens to me, or like in life in general, I feel like there are just 2 ways you can look at the situation. You know, you can either take the route where you crumble and you fall into fear and anxiety, or you can take the higher road where you can try your best to be optimistic and positive about the situation. I think naturally our minds are just geared more towards like having negative thoughts. It's a lot harder to convince yourself to be positive and keep pushing forward. But if whatever is happening to you, or whatever is happening right now, is happening regardless, would you rather make yourself continue to go down a deeper hole, or would you rather push yourself to get out of the hole? I think that is like the best advice that I can give. Anytime you're faced with any challenges, there are always two ways to look at a situation. One thing my dad said to me years ago that I still carry with me till this day, which is very surprising because I don't really talk to my dad that much, but one thing my dad said to me years ago that really stuck was that as long as you keep trying, it's not over. And when he said that, it made me really think like, wow, like as long as I don't give up, there is still a chance. I carry that with me for a lot of things in life. Whenever I feel like, damn, like this really sucks, or like, damn, how do I get out of this? I remind myself that as long as I don't give up, there's still a chance. Whatever you're going through, no matter how shitty the situation is right now, you are not alone, and that things will eventually get better, because if it doesn't, it's not the end. Just surround yourself with positive people if you can, and if you are around people that are really negative during this time, try to be the light in their life, you know? It's easy to just like fall into that. I used to be that type of person too. When like I'm around someone that's just negative, I will absorb all of that energy and I would just be negative with them. But I realized that I would rather be the light in someone's life. And even though it's hard to try to be that positive person, just be that person's light, you know? Like if you can be the positive person in this situation and you can see beyond the negativity right now, why not help that person get there? So try your best not to let other people's negativity, whether that be in your household or your roommates right now, bring you down. Try to be the light in their life, and I'm sure that one day they will appreciate it, and that one day they will see what you've done for them, and that one day they will be that light for you. What are some things you realize you could live without during this quarantine? Well, this is finally a lighter question. I've realized that I can live without my eyelash extensions. I realized that I don't have to get my... We're just gonna wait. I realized that I can do my own nails. I mean, I've always known that I can do it, but of course, you know, it's nice getting your nails done. Just like I think a lot of like the maintenance things that I would used to do, you know, I think I can definitely live without those things. I've always been able to live without those things, but you know what I'm saying. Oh, I can live without going to coffee shops. Yeah, that's another big one, because I would always go to coffee shops. It was just more of the experience. I really enjoy the experience of like meeting up with a friend at a coffee shop, but I also spent a lot of money at coffee shops, you know, and I can make my own lattes, and I make some really bomb lattes. Shout out to my Nespresso machine. What jobs have you had before or while starting YouTube? So if you guys are like OG viewers, you probably have known of every single job of mine, but let's go down the list. So my first job ever was actually at my parents' restaurant. And if you grew... Oh, I thought I saw something. And some people may think like, oh, well, you worked for your parents. It's not really a real job. Nubbish. It was a real job. Like my sister and I legit ran the restaurant, and we learned the ins and outs of how to run a restaurant. Obviously like a small restaurant, it's not like a big chain restaurant. It was like a local mom and pop Chinese restaurant, and I seriously grew up in that restaurant. At the time I hated it and I was really embarrassed by it, because every summer all the other kids at school would be going on family vacations, but for me summer vacation meant that I would go and work at the restaurant. And I remember I would used to lie to my friends at school, and I would say like, oh yeah, my parents are taking me to Disneyland. Oh yeah, we're gonna go here and there. But in reality, literally the day after school ended, I would be working at the restaurant all summer long. And at the time I really hated it, but I think like that whole experience, I am so grateful that my parents had me and my sister work at a restaurant at such a young age. I was 8 when we first started. We had the restaurant up until I was like 13, and we worked at the restaurant pretty much every single day after school. Obviously after we did our homework and stuff, but that was my life from 8 through 13. Almost every single day I had school, and then I had a job afterwards. And my parents weren't like the type of parents where they were just like letting us kind of slack off. We actually had to really run the restaurant, take all the phone calls, pack all the orders, take care of all the customers that would come in. And I remember at the time, like people would just kind of laugh because they would see me and my sister behind the counter, and they would think like, oh, like what do these little kids know? But in the end, they would always be so impressed by the way my sister and I handled the whole restaurant. And yeah, like I grew so much. Until this day, I look back to that experience and think about how much that whole experience of working at my parents' restaurant has molded me as a person today. So that was my first job. And then after that, my parents opened a flower shop. I was the delivery girl. So some of you guys may remember some of the vlogs from back then where I would deliver flowers. I think I deleted those vlogs already. But yeah, I delivered flowers for my parents for quite a few years. And then at one point, most of my friends worked for my parents, and they all delivered flowers too. And then Wah worked at the flower shop too. So it was like a family and friends business. So that was my second job experience. And then when I was in college, I worked retail at Victoria's Secret. I didn't work there for very long, but I was there during college just to make some monies. And I remember at the time when I first received the call from the person who interviewed me, she was like, hey, you got the job. Is $10 per hour okay? And I was like, yeah! I felt so proud because it was like my first job outside of working for my parents. I didn't even care how much the pay was, but $10 an hour was not bad. And I worked at the San Francisco Union Square location, so being in a big city, the pay was higher too compared to the suburbs I lived in. I think at the time minimum wage was like 8 something in the town that I grew up in, but working in San Francisco, I was getting paid $10 an hour, so I was like, yeah! Or was it $9? Somewhere between there, $9 or $10. And then while I was in college, I interned for Stila Cosmetics, which was a really, really cool experience. I was really proud of that experience because it was like my first corporate job. So I was interning and I was doing like customer service for Stila, so just answering a lot of emails and stuff like that, and I had a supervisor who I would help her like pack orders and stuff. So yeah, and that kind of pretty much catches me up to date. And then after college, I wanted to work corporate. That's what I majored in FITM. I wanted to do like product development or something like that for a beauty company, but I ended up just taking YouTube full time because right after I graduated, I think I got my first big like opportunity with Bobbi Brown, and that I think was like kind of like a wake-up call for me where I was like, this could actually be my career. Like, I can't believe a big company like Bobbi Brown would ever come across my channel and want to film a campaign with me. So I thought like there is definitely value in this, so like let's see where this takes me. So I was faced with either continuing to get my bachelor's, which would have been another 60 grand, or take YouTube full time and just start working. So I decided to start working. Are you baking and have you been experimenting in the kitchen? I've been seeing like literally everyone I follow bake during this quarantine, and I haven't gotten into it because, to be honest, I don't really have a sweet tooth. I don't really like eating sweets. It's just not my thing. I'm more of like a savory tooth. I like it when people bake for me, you know, like if my friends brought me over like a brownie or something, like I'm all for it. But yeah, I'm overall not super like crazy about baked goods. So no, I have not. Do you think you would use dating apps if you were single? Well, would I? I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. Like, I am not in that position, so obviously I don't know. Maybe, maybe no. I would say like a 50-50 because I am more like traditional and like conservative. I don't know if I appear that way, but like who I am as a person, I am very like kept to myself. You may not believe that because I think on YouTube I portray that I'm very like outgoing, and I am when I'm comfortable, you know, like after doing YouTube for so many years, I am comfortable with speaking in front of the camera and I'm comfortable with my friends and people like that, but to strangers I am more shy and reserved. So I feel like something like a dating app, although I can see why like people use it, because during this like day and age, especially like with living in LA too, I think it's so hard to meet people. And if you work full time, like what time do you have to go meet people? Like naturally, I think dating apps are a good place to like meet people. So I say 50-50 because I feel like because of who I am just more like, I guess like traditional, where I would want to meet someone in person rather than online. But I think if I reached a point where like it's just been dry for a long time and like, you know, I'm not meeting anybody and I was single, then I would give dating apps a try. Like I wouldn't be opposed to it. What's your favorite part about being a YouTuber? There are lots of things that I love about being a YouTuber. I think the first thing would have to be you're able to create a career out of being yourself, you know? Like all the other jobs that I listed earlier to you guys is that all of these jobs I'm working for someone or I'm working for something, and it's fulfilling that business or that person's goals. It's not my own, you know? I think being on YouTube has really allowed me to make a brand out of just who I am and like my beliefs. That part about YouTube I think is just absolutely amazing, and especially just looking at where my parents come from. My dad was like a villager from Vietnam and he came to America as a refugee, and as for my mom, she came here as an immigrant as well, and my families, they had nothing. Like they literally had nothing. I remember my parents would tell me these stories about like their upbringing and what it was like when they first came to America. And when I just compare my life and what I get to do in my career compared to like what my parents come from, like what more can I ask for? You know, I'm so blessed to have this opportunity. Like I can't believe this thing that I started doing when I was 15 because I was bored became my career. Like not a day goes by where I always get emotional when I talk about this, but yeah, like not a day goes by where I don't appreciate this. But yeah, hope that answered your question. And on top of that, another thing that's really rewarding about this job is just knowing that, like, how do I put this? So I remember like one time this person was saying to me how, you know, in life you have to leave behind your legacy, you know, whether that be your children or like something philanthropic that you did. And I was just thinking like, oh, you know, I don't really care to have a legacy. Like I just want to live my life. But then the person was like, well, think about it. Like once you die, if you didn't leave behind something, whether that be another generation or like something to your name, then you like never existed. And which is true, you know, not that I would care, honestly, like if I'm dead, I'm dead. So like, it don't matter. But then it kind of did get me thinking where I'm like, okay, well, it's kind of cool to think that beyond my family and my friends, there are so many other people who know of my existence, who've got to be a part of my life, or people that I had the opportunity to like impact, you know, or like have an impact on their life. Whatever it is that like I preach and show, it's crazy to think that it can have a positive impact on someone else's life. And that's really, really rewarding. Like how many people can go through their life and say that they were able to touch and impact a lot of people? You know what I mean? Like I think that part's really, really cool and really rewarding about YouTube. How are you and Wah keeping your relationship strong? Okay, can I talk? How are you and Wah keeping your relationship strong during quarantine? In this relationship with Wah, oh my God, we've been together for going on 9 years this September. So it's been like 8.5 years now, and we have just grown so much. When this quarantine first happened, I was thinking like, oh damn, I'm getting so sweaty. I'm so hot right now. I'm like my nipple pasties. I don't even know why am I wearing these nipple pasties? It's so hot. There's no AC in this room, as you guys know. Okay, anyways, let's continue. I think just being patient with each other is my answer. Like if you are struggling with your relationship during this time, just be patient with each other. Understand that you both are equally as stressed out of whatever is going on. You know, sometimes I think it can feel very one-sided, especially if you're feeling something so strong. You're like, oh, I'm going through this, like you just need to understand. But in a time like this, we just gotta be there for each other, you know? Both parties are feeling the anxiety and the stress of what's happening in the world. So how can you as a couple be strong and be there for each other and be supportive, but also be a listener for each other? Yeah, so patience. Patience really is something that will take your relationship so far if you just have the patience for each other. And I think that's what's kind of helped Wah and I get through our relationship too. Like we've always been patient with each other. Even though sometimes we're not patient initially at the moment, but we'll always have that space in our hearts to be patient and be a good listener for each other and just hear each other out. First thing you want to do after quarantine, you guys probably already guessed it, but I want to go camping. I am having the itch to go camping. I just want to be back in nature so badly. And maybe not even just camping, even hiking. Like I would love to be able to just go hike again. I just want to be like out in nature again. You know, I could be obviously in my backyard, but it's different. Like I want to be on a hike. I want to be like in the mountains. I want to like smell that air. Like, oh, I just love camping. It's like one of my favorite things to do in life. Camping is just something that brings me so much joy. Like I've learned so much while being in the outdoors. Anytime that I'm faced with any problems, being outdoors, I feel like always helps me find an answer. I love the outdoors and I just really cannot wait to be like on the road again. That's what I'm really, really looking forward to, and that's what I miss the most. How do you deal with negativity from people even when it's a family member? So actually this is kind of like something I answered earlier, but whenever dealing with negative people, there's just like two options, you know. You can either just be negative with them, let their negativity affect you, or you can be the light in their life. And my biggest thing with people that are negative is that you don't have to be them, you know? Like if you're around someone that's super negative, you don't have to be them. You don't have to let it affect you. It's up to you. Like you can't change how another person feels, but you can change how you react to it and how you feel. Find it in yourself to just have more patience. you know, and or like find it in yourself to be like confident and express how you feel without being negative, you know? So yeah, hope that's helpful. What are pros and cons about living together before marriage? There are lots of pros and cons, I think. I think more pros than cons. I made a little list. So some pros are that you spend a lot of time together. You can help share expenses and responsibilities, especially if you guys have kids or if you have pets. Like having someone to share that responsibility is very, very nice. You never really feel lonely. You know, you always have someone to sleep next to. You always have someone to watch movies with, have someone to eat with, so you don't feel as lonely. And then someone to help you when something breaks or need repair, which is a huge thing in this household. Things are always breaking or leaking. It's really nice having someone that you can count on, like someone that you can lean on. Like obviously I take it upon myself to do a lot of the things too in the house, but I love that I'm able to like share that with someone. Like for example, when the whole house flooded, you know, the backyard flooded, I was able to share that stress with someone. But yeah, some cons is that there are no more surprises. Not that there's no more, but it makes it a lot harder. And you don't miss the person. Like you don't have time to miss the person. That's one thing I really miss about just like the honeymoon stage, where like I'm really looking forward to see him, but now it's like I wake up and there he is. So there's like no time for you to really miss each other or like plan surprises for each other because you're always together. So that's one con. You don't really have so much personal space anymore because you obviously are sharing your space. So it's all about like being more mindful of how you can live with each other but still have your personal space, because you still can. But it is different than like if you were to live alone. If you lived alone, you can have everything exactly how you want it. You know, you can have your space whenever you need. You can have quiet time whenever you need. But when you live with someone, say I want to have quiet reading time, but Wa's like watching TV. Like we have to find a balance between that. And another con would be living habits. This is something that Wa and I struggled with a lot in the beginning of our relationship. We're a lot more into now, but early on, he was such a clean freak that I just didn't know how to match up to that. And we fought so much about it because he is so particular about how he wants things. And I just didn't care. You know, I would be the type where I'm just like throwing my clothes all over the place. I didn't do laundry. I would leave dishes in the sink. But he's like a clean freak, okay? Like a germaphobe. He's a lot better now. He's not so crazy anymore. But yeah, early on, our living habits did not match up, and that was very stressful for the both of us. I hated hearing him nag about how he wanted me to be more responsible and more clean, and he hated the fact that he had to always bring it up. So, and then the last thing that I listed here, I'm sure there are more pros and cons, but this is just like what I came up with quickly. Another thing is that you're sharing all of your life, basically. Obviously, you have your own things, but majority of the things you share. So you have to be mindful of these things. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was very lengthy, but I think I covered a lot. I think we talked about a lot. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys in my next video. I hope you guys are safe, healthy, happy wherever you are. All right, take care. Bye.